My name is Luke Aldridge. I'm interviewing Vietnam veteran Doug Allen, who served in the Army and was in Vietnam from December 1966 to May 1967. Mr. Allen, this interview will have 4 sections: your life before service, basic training, your time in Vietnam, and your life after service. So let's get started with your background. Where did you grow up, and what was your area known for?
I grew up in Maine, actually, till I was about a junior in high school. It was kind of interesting because I had snow sports, we lived on the lake, boating sports, swimming. I was an avid swimmer. Then when I was a junior in high school, my parents moved to Florida. So I switched from winter sports to summer sports, and I started surfing and sailing and snorkeling and fun stuff like that. I got my Eagle Scout when I was in Maine, just before we moved, and that turned out to be a valuable tool later on. And then I graduated from high school and started community college, dropped a course, and the draft board decided that they really would like to draft me, so I joined the Army.
To back up a little bit, can you tell me about your family growing up?
I had a good family. There was 2 brothers and 2 parents, and my father was World War II in the Pacific, and my grandfathers all served and everything. And I think my family had great expectations of me, and that was good because it pushed me along a little bit. And I've been reasonably successful, probably because they had great expectations.
Would you describe your dad's job as blue collar, white collar, or something else?
Blue collar, I guess. He was a manager of service at a Ford dealership and later became an insurance adjuster. My mother was a bookkeeper.
Do you have any memories of your father or other men around you telling war stories from World War II?
Just a little. My father was a crew chief on C-47s, DC-3s, and they island hopped all over the Pacific, delivering cargo and different things. It was the 13th Air Force, and he referred to it as the Thirsty 13th because they would sometimes transport a case of booze here and there. And he would just tell me about, they'd get lost and airsick and had to clean the planes up and different things like that.
Did you have a favorite World War II movie growing up?
No, but I think I saw them all. Our family went to the drive-in theater a lot. There's a thing to do where we lived. And we saw movies like, In Harm's Way and The Bridges at Tokori and The Hunters with Robert Mitchum, that sort of thing.
A lot of Vietnam veteran memoirs mention John Wayne as an influence on their expectations of war. Do you remember John Wayne that way?
No, I just remember him being a good actor, and I liked his movies. Nothing really pushed me. Probably my father was the only person that really kind of pushed me toward military. He became a pilot after he got out of the service, and he always encouraged me to become a pilot, and I did. While I was in high school, I got my student pilot's license, and I was actually interested in flying helicopters in the Army, but I didn't have a mentor, and that is so important. And I just got off on a different tangent, and I had to do everything after I got out of the Army. So,
You mentioned community college before. When and where did you go to college?
I started at Indian River College in Fort Pierce, Florida. Then I went in the Army. When I got out, I went to Kennesaw University, north of Atlanta, which is part of the Georgia state system. I got an associate degree in pre-law. Then I went to Georgia State in downtown Atlanta and finished up, got my business degree.
So before Vietnam, did you hear anything about Vietnam or the draft during your time in college?
Not really, no.
Did you have any friends talking about fears of the draft or fears of flunking out of a course?
No, I guess everybody's smarter than me. They weren't dropping their courses, and they really didn't talk about it. But there were 2 or 3 people that were interested in maybe in a career in the military, and they were kind of wondering what it would take. Was it going to take 2 years of college? Was it going to take 4 years of college to perhaps be a pilot or some other officer type position? But not a lot.
So I'd like to move on to the start of your service and basic training. Would you describe yourself as volunteering, being commissioned, or drafted?
I volunteered. They call that RA, Regular Army. The GI Bill was organized in such a way that if you got drafted, you got an abbreviated GI Bill. But if you joined and spent 3 or more years, you got a full GI Bill. I wanted the full thing because I already had to work my way through high school a little bit, and I didn't want to have to work my way through college that much, although I ended up doing that. But yeah, I went for that full GI Bill, and also at the time I was leaning towards staying in the Army. Having been an Eagle Scout, the Army was awful kind of easy for me. Nothing was unexpected, you know.
So you mentioned the draft board earlier. Historians of the Vietnam War note that in addition to volunteering, being commissioned, and being drafted, there were also draft-motivated volunteers. How would you describe yourself?
I don't know. I just, there was an opportunity. It was there. I took it. There was no stress or anything. I just, you know, if this doesn't work, I'll go here and do this.
So would you say you felt pressured to enlist because of the draft?
Well, yeah. I went down to the draft board and I said, hey, I dropped a course. What's going to happen? And I said, are you going to draft me? She said, yeah. And I said, when? She says, next week. So, yeah, I guess there's a little pressure at that point. I went ahead and joined.
Did you expect to go to Vietnam?
No, not in the beginning.
What, if anything, did you know about the country of Vietnam before you enlisted?
Nothing. It's just that there was some commotion going on there. And you hear things like, we're going to fight communism somewhere else so we don't have to fight it in our own backyard. You know, we were all real loyal and real go-getters, you know. Invincible is the word.
Do you remember anything specific about the last days before you entered the service or your trip to base?
No, only that, yeah. Here we go. Shoot. My father he drove me down to the bus stop, and you know, and we were us guys that were joining got on the bus, and he just shook my hand. That was very powerful. And then the recruiter guy handed me a file and said, "Alan, you're in charge. Get these guys to Fort Benning." So that was kind of strange.
How would you describe your boot camp experience?
Like I said, I was an Eagle Scout and an outdoor person, and it was pretty easy. I did have trouble with one little thing. We lived in Florida. Florida's flat. And even if you run on the beach, anything, it's flat. So, okay, well, guess what about Fort Benning? It's rolling hills. And you go out there and run a mile, and all of a sudden you hit one of these rollers, and you're running up the hill, and it really, really taxes you, you know. So I had to get past that.
Did anyone around you struggle with boot camp?
Yeah, there's a few people, but I think most everybody got through.
Do you feel like boot camp prepared you for Vietnam?
No, not at all. I can explain that later on. I found out that almost nobody knew anything about jungle warfare and counterinsurgency and all that sort of thing. And so we learned as we went. So they really didn't know. They were training us for conventional warfare, really.
What would you say you were most unprepared for?
Feeling like you were going to die. That's a very difficult. You can be tough. You can walk around. You can say, "Yeah, I'm going to go over there and I'm gonna beat up Viet Cong or something like that." But when you're in a situation where you know there's a 50-50 chance that you're not going to live, that's a whole new story.
Well, I'd like to move on to your time in Vietnam. Did anything stick out to you about your flight to Vietnam?
I love that flight. Everybody else, the other battalions had to go by ship. And for some reason, there was some extra training our battalion did or something. And we got to go on Air Force C-141 Starlifters. It was great. We were on those things for 24 hours, I think. We flew to Alaska, then to Japan, then Tan Son Nhut Airport in Saigon. And it was great. The Air Force guys gave us TV dinners, and we got to look out the porthole in the side of the plane, you know, and everything. And it was pretty cool. And we stopped in Alaska. Well, we weren't allowed to wear any insignia, just fatigues, green fatigues. And the people in Alaska said, "What unit are you? Where are you from?" And we couldn't tell them anything, and they were kind of perturbed with us. But that was just a refuel stop. And then we went to Japan, and then finally Vietnam. So.
Could you describe your first 24 to 48 hours in country?
Yeah, it wasn't all that bad. It was December, so it wasn't hot and it wasn't quite as stinky as it got later. We went to battalion headquarters, and you know it had been cool in Georgia in December to rather warm in Vietnam. So they gave us a week to acclimate, gave us our jungle fatigues. I was a 110-pound skinny kid, so I immediately took them to a Vietnamese tailor and had them tailored so they would fit a little better. And I got that done. They'd send us out to the field, and they'd bring us right back. Send us out, bring us right back. Like to acclimate us to that too. And that was just the beginning.
What did you expect when you arrived, based on TV or stories you had heard?
Didn't know. We had a first sergeant that went ahead of us, and we knew that he would alert us to anything we needed, but it was totally peaceful where we were. And we were young. Most of us were 19 years old, young kids, and it was an adventure for us. And we had no concept of dying. We were all tough, you know. And it wasn't until later that things got dicey, you know.
Where were you stationed initially?
They put us, well, drove us to Benoit, Beinhoa, and we had a battalion base camp there. And I remember it was kind of cool. You know, they just leveled everything and put tents up, so that's what they call a base camp. They were taking some sniper fire, and the sergeant major got in a helicopter and flew over where they thought it was coming from and threw out white phosphorus hand grenades. And all of a sudden, the sniper fire stopped. that's the only. And then jets would fly over. F-4 Phantoms, they're flying over a lot. But mostly we're just getting used to the heat and setting up tents and getting our gear together. So.
What most surprised you in your initial time in Vietnam?
Oh, nothing surprised me. It's just, hey, it's a different country. Look around, enjoy the sights. It's interesting.
Would you describe yourself as being in combat, in the rear, or something else?
In combat.
And what kind of work did you do?
I was, my MOS was 11B, and that's infantry rifleman. And my job was to be a fire team leader over about 5 guys. And we'd go out on ambush patrols at night, set up ambushes. And in the daytime, we'd go out on walk patrols. And sometimes we'd get on a helicopter and they'd fly us into a hot LZ somewhere, and we'd patrol around, get back on the helicopters and come back.
How often were those patrols?
Well, the patrols are every day. The heliborne operations were once a week or so, every 2 weeks maybe.
And was that just a one-day thing? You'd be out there for a few hours?
Yeah.
How would you describe the people you served with in terms of economic background, race, or religion?
Well, we had all races. It was, I remember there was, my buddy in LA is Chinese descended. Buddy in Florida is Jewish. Buddy from Houston, Texas was Hispanic. I mean, we had everybody, black guys, white guys. And in the Army, everybody's the same. You didn't know if anyone was particularly rich or poor or anything like that.
Were the other guys in your squad draftees, or did they enlist too?
Oh, yeah. Well, some of them, yeah, they would let you know that. But some of them were very vocal about not wanting to be there. They hated being there. And like me, I was like, I'm used to all that camping out, sleeping on the ground. That didn't bother me any, but they really hated it. I felt for them, but they did their job anyway. And they were doing what is expected of you, you know? They were good guys.
What were they complaining about?
They just weren't used to roughing it. And they would, some guy was like trying to figure out how to get a whole bunch of canteens of water to take with him on a patrol. And I took one, and like he's fighting with all that, drinking all that water. And when I got low on water, I got a coconut, split it open, poked a hole in it, and drank the coconut milk. I mean, I guess maybe he's from the city more, and he just never thought about doing things like that.
Did they object to the war itself, or just that they were a part of it?
That they were part of it. Like one guy said, we have to come and do this and live like this so that we don't have to go home and live like this, or something like that, you know. That was the best way to say it.
Did you work alongside any women, either Vietnamese or American?
No, I think back at the battalion base camp, they had some ladies they were actually digging rain ditches around tents and things like that, and they would do laundry for you. You give them the laundry and maybe you get it back. But and actually, okay, when we left the battalion area, we went to an area with a circle like the table, and it had sandbag bunkers around it, and that was like our headquarters. And from there we would launch the ambush patrols and everything. And there were some ladies and young boys that would come to the edge, and they would sell you beer, they would sell you Coke, and they would take your laundry off, like I said, and wash it and bring it back.
How did living in Vietnam and meeting Vietnamese people affect you?
Just living there, it was just, I don't know, it was a big camp out for me. It was very interesting to go around. Sometimes we'd talk to the people, or actually the interpreter would, and we'd all stand around and kind of listen, just like what's going on and stuff like that. It's interesting to see how they lived. They lived mostly in, we call them hooches, like a grass shack thing. I got a picture of it on the thumb drive.
You mentioned children earlier. What do you remember about Vietnamese children?
Oh, that was interesting. When the 25th Infantry Division had been patrolling this area, and they were moving out, and we moved in and take their place. And when we did, there was a building there that was a school. It didn't have any walls, just a roof, like a carport or something. That was their school. And they tried to, they sent all the kids back to school when we got there, and that was kind of cool. But then it got a little too hot there later, and so they weren't able to keep doing it. But when I went back home, people were saying, "How many children did you see die and all this?" I said, "No, we moved in there and the kids went back to school," and they went, and they're so taken aback because the movement at home was already, the anti-war movement was starting to take foothold, and I hadn't seen any reason for an anti-war movement. Now later, I'm sure there was plenty of reason, but.
You mentioned an interpreter earlier. Did any Vietnamese people at the time know English?
Yeah, they would know some English. Like, you number 10 GI or you number 1 GI. A number 1 GI is clean and his uniform is straight. And some of them get all dirty and muddy and on patrol and, "Oh, you number 10 GI. And we learned a little ourselves, like Didi Mao, that means hurry up. And we could count a little bit.
Do you remember any distinct animals during your time in Vietnam?
Water buffaloes. That's about it.
And what did you think of them?
Well, they're nice. They stood out there in the rice paddy, and they didn't bother us. We didn't bother them.
Did you have any pets in Vietnam?
No.
Did anyone on base?
No.
All right. Did you experience any culture shock in Vietnam?
No, not really. After we started getting into combat situations, there was some, but no culture from the people or the place, really.
Do you remember seeing Agent Orange being sprayed?
Yeah. At one point, they put us around the Benoit ammunition dump, and they had sprayed Agent Orange all the way around for a clear field of vision. And we had to patrol all through that area where they sprayed Agent Orange. And it was bamboo thickets and then dirt like a desert. And one time, we got a new commander. They changed company commanders. And we were 5 clicks out, and they said, "Get back here immediately." So we had to run through the jungle and we're running back to where we were stationed there temporarily, and all of a sudden it started raining, and I said, wait a minute, that's not rain. It's like a little oily maybe, or alcohol-y or something. And I think we got sprayed by Agent Orange.
Wow.
So I think it must be genetics or something that it didn't really, actually, maybe it has hurt me a little bit, not significantly.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Were you concerned at the time about Agent Orange?
No, we didn't. We just knew it was weed killer. We didn't care.
What were some of the ways you coped with the war?
Well, I just kept doing it. I told you that I was a fire team leader. I was not at first, and after we had a squad pretty much wiped out, I guess I coped with that by volunteering to be a fire team leader. Step up instead of step back, you know.
How did people around you cope with the war?
Nobody liked it. We're starting to wonder a little bit, I think. We seemed like that we weren't getting all the equipment we needed. I was the fire team leader. I didn't have a compass. I didn't have a map. I had to kind of wing it. It seemed like I would have had that. The machine gunners are having a fit about not having the materials to clean their weapons. And one of them had an opportunity to go back to the battalion. He went to the supply tent and literally stole stuff to bring back to the field to clean their machine guns.
Wow. What was the most memorable friendship you had during your time in Vietnam?
It's a funny thing. You don't make too many friends because, especially if somebody new comes into your unit, you don't even talk to them. I mean, you don't mean to do that, but you end up not talking to them because you know that if they get killed or something, you know. I guess I would say that my company trained together at Fort Benning, Fort keep forgetting what they call it now, Fort Moore, and we all knew each other, and we trained together, we traveled over there together, we stayed together there, so we all knew each other. So we were all acquainted at least. Some people had buddies, I did not. I was a loner a little bit.
Did you feel responsible for your guys as fire team leader?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't say that they were friends?
No.
Okay. What was the most beautiful thing you saw in Vietnam?
Well, it's a beautiful country. Rice paddies and the Mekong Delta, Mekong River. And at times we'd fly where there were some of these mountains that were very pointed little mountains. And a couple times they flew us into places where we had to climb those things. They were very steep and difficult to go up. But just, you know, if you blank out the war, it's a beautiful place, you know.
Who did you write to or receive letters from when you were in Vietnam?
I had to write my parents all the time, but they get upset. I knew about 5 girls, and it's funny because you end up writing the same letter to all different people, and you just change the names to protect the innocent, I guess. And yeah, a few people wrote me back, and that was pretty nice. But
Were those girlfriends or just friends?
friends that were girls, I guess.
Okay. And how old were you when you were in country?
I think I was 19. I turned 20 sometime there. Maybe I was 20.
Do you remember any American TV shows or songs from your time in Vietnam?
No, we didn't have a way to play music very much back then. No iPhones, no iPads, no computers. They would play movies for us, but that was no good.
You didn't have any radios?
No, not really. There maybe have been a few, but I think I'd say I went the whole time with no music.
I guess if you can't get equipment to clean your guns, you probably don't have a radio lying around.
Or batteries. The batteries
Right.
are big deal.
Do you have any memories of USO shows or other recreation on base?
No, we didn't see any USO or anything. There was a donut dolly that flew out once in a while, but nothing. Yeah, our I probably shouldn't even say this, but what the heck. The 199th was broken up into about 10 or 12 battalions, and the battalions were farmed out to different infantries. And the designation of all these is confusing. I think it's probably to confuse the Russians, I don't know, but it confused us. But sometimes I felt like our unit was treated as an orphan. You know, they just put us out in the field. We didn't get to go to the PX or anything.
Well, that's the end of my service questions. Is there another story we haven't talked about from your time in Vietnam that you'd like to share?
Well, there were things that happened that would probably make me grab the Kleenexes again, but I mean, is this the end?
No.
Oh.
No, we've got more questions, but this is the end of our section of your time in Vietnam.
Oh. Well, okay. You asked me about if I felt responsibility for the people that worked with me. You know, when you're trained infantry, you expect certain things. You're trained to expect it, you know. And there were, you know, you go on patrols, you go on ambushes, there's some firefights, some people get killed or wounded by booby traps. We call them booby traps. They're IEDs now, and things like that. But there were some incidents that seemed like I was always involved with this type of incident that could only be described as a horror story. And the first one was when I mentioned that a patrol got wiped out. That night I was on bunker duty back at the headquarters, and they came and got me and said, "Alan, the first platoon's in trouble. They need you to go with a team to rescue them." Well, we all met up in the center and with a lieutenant, and we started walking toward where the fire was coming from, the tracer bullets, and we all looked at each other and immediately started double timing down the road. And when we got there, it was the most surreal situation you have ever seen in your life. You could not put this in the movies. There were flares coming down with their parachutes and smoke, and they hiss when they come down. They were making light against the hooches and weird shadows against the trees. And in the background was Puff the Magic Dragon, a gunship, machine gun gunship. We called it Puff. They call them Spooky sometimes. Just ribbons of red tracers coming down. And the rice paddy at this intersection had craters in the mud. Just like gray paint, just like a battleship gray craters all over the place. And the guys that we went to rescue, we had to recover. And they were just like they had been dipped in that gray mud, and we had to get, and a helicopter landed, and we're trying to get them on the helicopter, and we put so many people out to guard us around our perimeter. There's only 3 of us to pull the guys out of the mud, and So one guy would stand guard and the other two would do it, and they were just slippery and smelly from the mud, and there were also pieces of that you expect maybe a little blood, but you don't expect to see brain matter and that sort of thing. And it was very extremely stressful, but we got them out of there, and the helicopter they were kind of like, hurry up, we're sitting ducks out here. Anyway, we got them all on the helicopter and got them off. And that was when we all realized that we weren't invincible. And then 3 months later, to get back to where I started, I led a fire team out on a listening post. That's where you're supposed to go out there and just listen and report back if there's any activity, because it was a real hot area. Anyway, a Viet Cong patrol, there was a stream and some trees, and we were just right there in the trees. Viet Cong patrol came like this, and before we knew it, we were eye to eye, 10 feet apart, and it was like high noon at the OK Corral, I guess. And I got on the radio and said first we set off, we turned the listening post into an ambush. I mean, a firefight started. I got on the radio and said that the listening post was compromised, and there was a guy in the Viet Cong that threw multiple hand grenades that landed behind us, so almost everybody got wounded. So I sent the wounded back to the company LZ, and I was gonna, cover them and be the last one out. And then when I tried to get up and move, I realized I was wounded too. So the only thing I could do is flip over and crawl out into a rice paddy and play dead with my face half in the water. I was an avid swimmer, I may have mentioned that. And so that was easy for me to do. But they came and they took my rifle, they took the radio, they took the radio code book. And I just knew after the incident 3 months before, where they finished everybody off, I was waiting for them to finish me off, and I guess they were in a rush, and they did not. And I got left out there by myself for quite a while until finally the company came out and got me, put me on a helicopter. And they said, they gave me morphine and said, stay awake, stay with us, Alan. And I stayed with them until I remember waking up in the field hospital.
Wow.
So anyway, I got my guys out alive. So, but a bunch of us were wounded from those hand grenades. That was really bad.
Thank you for sharing those stories. Truly awful, some of those situations.
I didn't know if you wanted that, or you can cut it out.
Well, thank you for sharing them. I really appreciate it. So you had enemies take things off of your body, and they didn't realize that you were still alive.
Correct, yeah.
Wow, it's incredible. And so in that firefight, did the VC see you first, or were you the first ones that shot?
I think we were the first ones that shot, but I should have, looking back, I argue with myself about this. The cadre we got came from Germany, the sergeants and senior sergeants. They were trained in conventional warfare. And like I said, the jungle warfare and counterinsurgency and all that kind of thing, we had to wing it. And I should have, but you tend not to argue. If they tell you to do something, you do it. But I should have argued with them, because that was a lousy place to set up. And they came along with a patrol. They were spread out just like they should be. And a guy on the end, when we started firing, he just threw hand grenades. He just had a good old time throwing hand grenades. And they got us.
So where were you wounded?
I was kind of laying down on a rice paddy dike, so I got hit in my left side and through my stomach muscles. That's why I couldn't stand up. My stomach muscles wouldn't work. I was like a turtle on its back, I guess.
So were you bleeding from that injury?
Internally, yeah.
Well, incredible stories. Thank you very much for sharing them. I'd like to move on to your post-service life. What relationship in your life was most changed by your service?
I think instead of gaining a lot of confidence, I lost a lot of confidence in myself. I got out and I probably married the first girl that came along. She was a nice person, but we ended up getting divorced later. We had 2 kids, and I wanted to go to college. I wanted to use my GI Bill. I felt like I earned it. And so I started going, and it was very difficult. It took me 10 years to get my bachelor's, I think. And I was lucky. I got a job with Southern Bell Telephone, and from there I was able to go on to better things and get promoted into management and that sort of thing, and go to school at night. And I guess just the thing that changed is it took me a while to get my self-confidence back. I guess I felt like I should have been invincible in Vietnam, and I wasn't. And also when we got out, you know, I think today a veteran can go into a company and say, "Hey, do you have employment for me?" And they'll say, "Oh, you're a veteran, maybe we can help you." But it was like I didn't exist. And I just had to keep hunting around for a job. But actually Southern Bell did recognize that I was a veteran and actually gave me some upfront help. So.
You mentioned earlier high expectations from your family and your family's military past. So did your time in the service change your relationship with your family?
Oh, no. They when I got home on convalescent leave, the first thing they did was get a reporter out there, and my picture got splashed all over the newspaper. I see it was still early enough. So they put it in there with an article about me and everything. Now later on, they probably wouldn't have done that. So
they were proud of you?
My parents were, yeah. I mean, later on, the newspaper might not have done that because the anti-war machine was working.
Right. Did you know any anti-war veterans?
No, just when I came back on convalescent leave, I think I mentioned, I went with a friend of mine from high school, and we went to a coffee shop, and that's where I mentioned the kids went back to school, and they were so startled because they were all, you know, expecting me to give them some really gory stories about children being burned or something, and I didn't have any.
What was it like watching the Vietnam War on television in the years after you'd left the country?
Well, I mostly was at work, and I didn't like it. I was glad I wasn't there. That was a televised war. That was ugly. I don't think I tried to watch it much.
You've mentioned the anti-war movement a few times in the interview. Did you see that on TV as well?
A what movement?
The anti-war movement.
Yeah, I guess I saw it, but like I said, I probably watch the news more now, but then I didn't. I worked, and when I came home, I did other things. Wasn't interested.
How did you interact with the VA?
I didn't go at first. My uncle and my father kept saying, "You gotta go, you gotta go, you got wounded, you have to go down." And so after about 6 months, one of them made my appointment for me, and I went down there, and sure enough, I got some disability, 10% or something, and and that was pretty good. I was sitting there in the waiting room at the VA, and they had a big pile of older veterans folders, and mine was single. And one of the older veterans got up and put the big pile on top of mine. I was thinking, what's this? And then the doctor came in and said, no compensation, people. And the guy said, yeah, there's one. They look all around, they pulled my folder out, and I got to go first before them. They were kind of mad at me. But I guess they wanted, I was new there, they wanted to get me in, get me checked. Later on, VA is that's a hit or miss organization. It's a good example of socialized medicine. Luckily, I'm not really sick much, so I don't have to go there much. I go once a year for my physical, and they screen you big time. They give you a blood test for 3 pages long, and they let you see it, which, a regular doctor, you can't look at this. But later on, I had PTSD, and I probably should have answered this a minute ago, and I didn't know it. I just didn't have any confidence. I kind of thought I was not as smart as I should have been, and I did things sometimes that didn't make sense, and I can tie it back to PTSD, but I didn't really realize I had it until I retired. And then I had more time to reflect. I'm working on a memoir and stuff, and boy, I was getting more and more overwhelmed by stuff. And there was this Vietnam wall that moves around to different towns. It came to we lived in Kentucky, it came there. And I did it. They had probably 1,000 little American flags out in front, and it significantly overwhelmed me. So after that, I decided I was going to go to the VA mental health thing, and I got in a car and I drove halfway there and went back home. I think the next day I drove halfway there and went back home. Finally, the third day I made it. Yeah, well, that was good. They pretty much grabbed me and pulled me in. And they said, yeah, you need to come see us. We'll set you up with somebody, and you can talk to them and that sort of thing. So my pet peeve, though, with the VA, they all did wonderful. The pet peeve I got with the VA is that they knew I was combat. They knew I got wounded. Why didn't they initially make me sit down with somebody? And they did not. And my buddies were scattered all over. Everybody's going to college, doing different things. I didn't have anybody to talk to. And I just had to work my own way through everything. And but then I got some help. But, a 19, 20-year-old forms a self-image at some point. And if you form your self-image when you're in combat and seeing people mutilated and killed and stuff like that, it doesn't do much for your self-image. And even today, I have trouble with it, and I've tried to escalate my claim, my benefit claim for PTSD, but they don't seem to think. I guess I'm not a good actor. I don't know. But anyway, I'm stable. I'm not going to go crazy here in a minute or anything.
Well, thank you for sharing that. What year did you start the treatment at the VA?
Well, let's see. I don't know, 2014 maybe?
That late.
Yeah. I was already retired and everything.
Did you participate in any veterans rap groups or Agent Orange studies?
No. I just saw one-on-one counselors. What do they call them? Not counselors, analysts. And I also, you can go to the vet center and you can keep everything private. So I did that. And what's the biggest thing about PTSD is you just got to know you got it. Once you know you got it, you can say, oh, this is maybe why I did this, or this is why I did that. And then you can help yourself. But finding out real late didn't help me out very much, that sort of thing.
Who, since the war, have you talked to about Vietnam?
Well, like I said, my company all trained together at Fort Benning, Fort Moore. We went over there together, so everybody knew each other. So we had, I can't remember when, some really good reunions in Las Vegas. And some people hadn't talked to anybody since Vietnam. And I'm trying to remember when we had it. I don't know, 2004, I don't know, something like that. And that was when some people made contact with people they knew, and they were able to talk about it some. And I got one of my buddies, several of my buddies that I gave you the name of for reference. Sometimes I call them once in a while, and they call me. We talk a little bit. Like, hey, this is the anniversary of when you rescued me, or hey, this is your anniversary where you got shipped out, or something like that. And so we get to do a little bit of talking. That the whole Vietnam thing comes down to sacrifice, I think, and sacrifice boils down to value of life, whereas if somebody dies, their legacy stops right there. They don't get married, they don't have kids, they don't have grandkids. Tons of people that aren't born, and that's where it stops. And then if they don't die and they come home and they bring home mental or physical issues home, then it's quality of life, where their quality of life is affected, their family's quality of life, their kids, even their grandkids. And I can tell you right now, my grandkids are affected by things that happened to me in Vietnam, and they don't even know it, because I probably wasn't there for them as much as I could have been, and things like that. And so when you say sacrifice, it's a very broad spectrum, where not just like you see a soldier, thank you for your sacrifice. It's not just him. There's a whole cadre of people behind him, his family and people he works with, and different things like that, people he interacts with, that are all in some small way also have sacrificed, and they may not even know it,
Have you talked to any family members about your time in Vietnam?
No, a little bit. They know, like about a lot of, and I wish I hadn't. I sometimes have to tell them to be quiet. They say, "Oh, he had to play dead." I said, "Don't tell people that." But just a little. I'm writing a memoir. I don't know. I'll wait till I'm almost deceased to release it, maybe.
Have you been to the wall in D.C.?
Yeah, yeah. We had a mini reunion up there, and we all decided to go to the wall. And I was, they got on my case. He said, you need to de-stress. But I was like, okay, I'll tell you guys where the panels are, where our guys are. And I was going down showing, okay, this is the panel for March 14th. This is the panel for July. And of course, then about that point, I got overwhelmed. Well, actually, not by looking at the wall this time, but when we started doing that, there were families there with kids. And you can imagine, it's like, okay, kids, hold back. We're just a little overzealous, pointing out the panels where our deceased comrades were, and those the families were just, watching. There really wasn't much to it, it's just, I think they you could kind of tell they felt for us a little bit, Told you I'm a wimp.
Were those families with people on the wall?
Pardon?
Were those families with people on the wall as well?
They may have been, I don't know. They were just there to see the wall or whatever. They may have had relatives on there. A lot of people put a piece of paper up there and take a pencil and trace the name. Mm. But we kind of made a scene. And but I think they were kind of interested in what we were looking at and everything. So,
do you think it's a fitting memorial?
More than, yes. And the way, I don't know if you've seen it, it's a V shape, but it starts real small and gets bigger and bigger. And if you're not careful, that alone will overwhelm you because it's just so many names, too many.
Have you been back to Vietnam?
No, nope. Went to Disney World with the kids, and there's a place called the Asia section or something, and I almost couldn't handle that. It was very much similar, palm trees, boats, river, all the usual stuff. Now I could probably go now that I realize that I have PTSD. I could do. But before, there's no way. He would not get me there. Hmm.
Do you know anyone who's been back?
Yeah. One of the lieutenants, he's crazy. He was with us. Everybody went back to the States. He went back to Vietnam again. Then he went back home. Then he and his wife went there as civilians, and he wrote a book called Same River, Different Water. And he I think he kind of wanted to show how everything had gotten better and that sort of thing.
This is my last question. Do you have a favorite book, poem, or movie about Vietnam?
Well, it's not favorite, but sometimes I tell people, they say, what was Vietnam like? I say, well, it was kind of like the movie Platoon, and it felt kind of like the movie Apocalypse Now. It's just, and like I said, if you think until you think you're gonna die, yeah, you're not there yet, And the Apocalypse Now talked about horror, and yeah, there's horror. Worst horror show you ever saw, I thought about.
So have you seen a lot of Vietnam War movies?
Yeah, I've seen them. If they're any good, I'll watch them. and but I got a grip on myself now, so it doesn't bother me.